Hi, I'm Lilliane. I'm the owner of Farine, and I offer sourdough workshops and food events. And today I'll be showing you how to make sourdough. I love the symmetry between sourdough and coffee and how they're both grounding and really beautiful arts that you can practice every day just to be more mindful and present. The first step in making sourdough bread is mixing your dough. You start out by using your active, mature starter and adding it to warm water and beautiful organic flour. This is also known as autolyse. This gives an opportunity for all the beautiful bran in your flour to absorb that water and start working its magic. All right, so the first step in mixing your dough is measuring out your starter. Now today I'm making 4 loaves, so I'm going to be using 400 grams of my mature starter, which I fed last night. There you are. After adding the starter, we're gonna bring some water up to about 91, 92 degrees. And today I'm going with, my hydration level is going to be at 75%. So for these 2 loaves, I'm going to be adding 1,500 grams. Mixing the starter. You want to mix the water and the starter until they all come together. Just dissolving the starter in the water. I like to use my hands. That way I know how the dough is feeling. I can sense when everything is properly dissolved. Now I'm going to use a separate bowl to measure the flour because this is such a large quantity. Now my starter's all mixed in. Right, now I'm going to measure out the flour, adding 1,600 grams of white flour. And that'll go directly into the bowl. And now I'm going to add some wheat flour to bring it up to 2,000 grams of flour. And now I get to get my hands all wet and dirty, slowly mixing that all together. I want to completely hydrate this flour. This will bring you right back to childhood when you used to play in the sandbox or on the beach with the sand and the water. After a while, you start to get a sense of what it should feel like. It's a very tactile process. You want to make sure you get all of the dry bits of flour integrated into the water. It's hard to overwork the dough by hand. You do want to add a little bit of air to the dough as you're mixing, but using an electric hook can over-process the dough. So I personally like to encourage people to use their hands because then they get to know what it should feel like as well. And hey, it's fun. So we're almost there. You can just see how the flour's absorbing into the water. And while it looks very wet right now, it'll eventually all come together and it will slowly bring structure as we work it and as the flour integrates with the water. And now it's just going to sit for 40 minutes to allow that full autolyse, that full hydration process. So after the dough's rested for 40 minutes, we're adding some fine sea salt over the top of the dough and then a little bit of warm water just to help that salt dissolve. And then I'm going to go in and integrate the salt and water into the dough and bring it all back together. So once your bowl is covered, you can put it back into your oven with the light on for another 30 minutes. This allows your dough to be at the optimal desired temperature of 27 degrees Celsius. After the addition of salt and the dough has rested for 30 minutes, you're going to start your first series of stretch and folds. Stretching and folding allows the dough to build structure while maintaining all of that beautiful gas and air that's building up in the dough. So I'm just pulling the dough, and you can see all that beautiful structure starting to take place. And once you've gone all the way around, then you can just tidy up the dough in the bowl to finish it off by raising the dough out of the bowl and just tucking the ends down. You can already see how it's starting to build in volume and starting to take a little more structure. And now it goes back in the oven for 30 minutes for another rest, and we'll come back and stretch and fold again. So you'll know your dough has sufficiently proofed when you notice a dome shape in the structure of the dough. You also want to move the bowl around and check to see if there's some movement, which will signify enough air in your dough. And the other test you can do is actually using your finger to press into the dough and see if there's a little bit of a spring back once you depress into the dough. If you have that, then your dough has sufficiently risen. Once the dough has sufficiently risen, now you're ready to continue with the pre-shape of the loaves. So you're going to start by lightly dusting the top of the dough and then inverting it onto the counter, and then going in and cutting each loaf one at a time while creating tension. You can see how much it's developed, how much more volume there is. And then it's a matter of just separating the loaves and starting to create that tension. As I'm pulling along, I'm gently creating tension and giving shape to the loaf without compromising that beautiful air that's developed inside the loaf. And then the dough just rests on the counter for 30 minutes, and then the final shaping takes place. So the final shaping of the loaves takes place after they've rested on the counter for 30 minutes. So I'm going to dust the basket, make sure it's ready, dusting any excess out, lightly dusting the counter, and then I'm going to reverse the loaf onto the counter and shape it before putting it into the basket. And then just bring it together with a final slight cinching, giving it a little more shape, and then leaving it for the final rise. Right, now's the exciting part, to score the loaf. So I'm going to turn the loaf onto a piece of parchment paper and ease it out of the basket. And I want to score it so that the loaf is going to rise beautifully in the oven. So I'm going to go at a 45-degree angle and do a really nice cut in there. And then you can get all fancy and artistic and do a little design. This is where you have an opportunity to add your own personal signature on your loaf. Everybody has their own style, and there you are. So So the bread bakes in the oven at 475 degrees with the lid on in the Dutch oven for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you take the lid off and let the bread brown for the final period. Once it's a beautiful, deep golden brown, you're ready to enjoy your bread. Thank you so much for watching my tutorial today, and I'm excited to announce we're going to be giving away a free sourdough workshop in collaboration with 8 Ounce Coffee. Check for all the details on the Instagram post, and until then, happy brewing and proofing!